Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling personal growth plans for the new year, and we're actually drawing inspiration from, a kind of surprising place.
Oh,
An episode of the English Globe podcast.
interesting.
Now, before you think this is just, all about learning languages, stick with us.
Right.
Because what we found fascinating in this episode is how they use learning English as this really effective model for achieving pretty much any goal.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you already know, personal growth is about, becoming a better you.
Right.
But what they do so well is break down that journey in a way that's super relatable using, learning English as an example.
And they give really practical advice too.
Totally.
So think of this deep dive as our way of extracting all that wisdom and applying it to your own hopes and dreams for the new year.
I love that. And I mean, there's no better time than the start of the new year to kind of tap into that, fresh start energy.
Right.
And set some intentions. So listeners, what areas are you hoping to focus on in the coming year?
Well, one thing they emphasize early on is the importance of setting SMART goals.
Ah, yes.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
Right.
I mean, we've all heard of them, but how often do we actually put them into practice?
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of, a new goal.
Totally.
And completely forget to actually break it down into, manageable steps.
Right.
It's almost like trying to climb Mount Everest without any training or equipment.
Oh, absolutely.
You're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, they give this great example. Instead of saying, I want to learn to speak fluent English, a SMART goal would be, I will have a 15-minute conversation with a native English speaker every week.
I love that. It takes this big daunting goal.
Right.
And makes it feel so much more doable.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the most important element of a SMART goal?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'd say it's the achievable part. There's nothing more discouraging than setting a goal that's so far out of reach
Totally.
that you feel defeated before you even begin.
I agree. It's really all about setting ourselves up for success. Not setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
For sure. And speaking of steps,
Yeah.
they go on to talk about creating an action plan. Basically, your roadmap to achieving your goal.
Got it.
And they use the analogy of learning English by immersing yourself in the language.
Makes sense.
So they talk about incorporating little bursts of English practice throughout your day.
Okay.
Like listening to podcasts during your commute or reading English articles online.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting. They suggest looking for those little pockets of time in your day that you can dedicate to your goal.
Okay.
Maybe it's 10 minutes while you're waiting for your coffee to brew or 15 minutes before bed.
Yeah.
Just those little moments.
That's such a good point. I mean, think about your own goal right now, listeners.
Right.
What's one tiny action you could take consistently to move forward?
That is such a powerful question. And they really emphasize that consistency is key.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about making huge leaps. It's about showing up day after day.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
I love that small, consistent actions build momentum.
Sure.
And create lasting change.
Right.
It's like, those tiny drops of water that eventually carve out canyons.
And it's not just about the time you put in. They talk about the importance of having the right resources to support your journey.
For sure.
They recommend things like language learning apps, online courses, and even connecting with native English speakers.
Right.
So I'm curious, in your own experience, what kind of resources have been most helpful in supporting your personal growth?
Oh, wow. Well, I am a big fan of audiobooks for learning new things.
Okay.
And I'm always on the lookout for podcasts that offer practical advice and inspiring stories. But what really stood out to me from this English Globe episode was their emphasis on the importance of a support system.
Yeah.
They highlight how having people in your corner can make such a difference.
For sure.
In staying motivated and overcoming challenges.
Absolutely. They talk about different types of support.
Oh, yeah.
Like having a cheerleader friend who celebrates your love line, wins an accountability partner who helps you stay on track. Or even a mentor who can offer guidance based on their own experiences.
That's so true. We often try to go it alone.
Yeah.
But having a supportive community, whether it's in person or online, can provide that extra boost of encouragement when we need it most.
They even talk about the power of online communities.
Really?
For finding people who are on similar journeys.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Like you could join a subreddit for people who are learning English or a Facebook group for entrepreneurs.
Makes sense.
or even just connect with like-minded people on Twitter.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like having a virtual cheer squad and a brainstorming session all rolled into one.
And they make this really important point about support being a two-way street.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just about receiving support.
Right.
It's also about giving support to others.
Absolutely. Sometimes just offering a kind word or sharing your own experiences can make a huge difference
Boy.
in someone else's journey. It creates a sense of community
Yeah.
and reminds us that we're all in this together.
And, as we're talking about building a support system and creating an action plan, I can't help but think about the importance of mindset.
Oh yeah, mindset is everything
Right.
when it comes to achieving our goals.
The English Globe podcast hosts dedicate a whole segment to the mental game of personal growth, and it's filled with some really insightful nuggets.
Ooh, I'm all ears.
Bruh.
What specifically did they highlight?
Well, they talk about the importance of staying motivated,
Okay.
even when things get tough.
Right.
They emphasize the power of remembering your why,
Yeah.
that deep down reason why you set this goal in the first place.
That's so crucial. When we lose sight of our why, it's so easy to get discouraged
Right.
and give up.
Yeah.
But when we reconnect with that deeper purpose, it can reignite our passion
For sure.
and fuel our efforts.
Exactly. And they also talk about the importance of celebrating small wins.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's easy to get caught up in focusing on the end goal,
Yeah.
but acknowledging those small victories along the way can boost our confidence and keep us motivated.
I love that celebrating our progress, no matter how small, reinforces positive habits.
Right.
It helps us stay on track. It's like giving ourselves little rewards along the way.
And they offer some really practical advice for dealing with those inevitable moments of self-doubt.
Oh yeah, we all have those.
Like they suggest reframing negative thoughts
Okay.
and focusing on what we can learn from setbacks.
It's so easy to get caught up in that negative self-talk,
Oh, yeah.
especially when we hit a roadblock. But reframing those thoughts and viewing challenges as opportunities for growth
Right.
can be incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. They even talk about the importance of practicing self-compassion,
Yeah.
reminding us that everyone makes mistakes
Oh, for sure.
and that it's okay to not be perfect.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about setting SMART goals, creating an action plan, building a support system, and cultivating a positive mindset.
Wow.
And it's all been inspired by the wisdom of a podcast about learning English.
It's amazing how seemingly unrelated topics can offer such valuable insights
I know.
into personal growth. It really highlights that the principles of success are universal no matter what goal you're pursuing.
Absolutely. And as we move into the next part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring some specific resources and tools that can help you put these principles into action.
I'm excited to dive into that. There are so many amazing resources available, and it's all about finding what works best for you and your unique learning style. It's funny how we often think about, tools and resources for personal growth
Yeah.
as like physical things.
Yeah.
But the English Globe podcast really made me rethink that.
Oh, yeah.
They emphasize the value of our own personal networks
Oh, yeah.
as resources for growth.
That's so true. Like, we tend to overlook the people around us. They
Yeah.
were talking about how mentors, friends, online communities, even friendly rivals
Right.
can all contribute to our success.
What I found fascinating was their breakdown of different types of support.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, there's the cheerleader who's always hiking you up,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is great for a quick boost.
Right.
But then there's the accountability partner who isn't afraid to give you a nudge when you're slacking off.
Oh, totally.
And those relationships serve totally different purposes.
I've definitely benefited from both types. It's like having different workout buddies, depending on whether you need a spotter or someone to push you to do one more rep.
Uh-huh. I love that analogy.
But what about mentors? Have you had any experiences with mentorship that really impacted your growth?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Early in my career, I had this mentor who really challenged me
Okay.
to think bigger and step outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable at times, but it pushed me to grow in ways I never would on my own.
The English Globe hosts brought up a point about mentorship that I hadn't considered before.
Oh, really?
They said it doesn't have to be this formal, structured relationship.
Right.
Sometimes just observing someone you admire.
Yeah.
You know how they approach challenges, how they interact with others,
Right.
can be a form of informal mentorship.
That's a great point. It's like we're constantly absorbing information for the people around us, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you ever found yourself unintentionally mentored by someone just by observing their behavior?
Now that you mention it, I think I have. There's this author whose work I really admire, and I've noticed that she's incredibly disciplined
Okay.
about her writing routine.
Yeah.
And it's inspired me to be more intentional about, like, carving out time for my own creative pursuits.
I love that. It's a subtle but powerful form of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights that we're all teachers and students in different ways.
Right.
Speaking of learning, the podcast host stressed the importance of self-reflection
Oh, yeah.
as a tool for growth.
Right.
It is not enough to just go through the motions.
Totally.
We need to pause and actually process what we're learning.
Right. It's like taking a step back to look at the map and make sure we're still headed in the right direction.
Exactly. They had some great practical tips for incorporating self-reflection into our routines. What resonated with you?
I'm a big fan of journaling for self-reflection.
Yeah,
I find that getting my thoughts down on paper helps me process them more effectively
makes sense.
and identify patterns I might not have noticed otherwise. Do you journal?
I do, though. I'll admit I'm not always consistent with it.
Yeah.
I find it most helpful when I'm working through a specific challenge
Okay.
or trying to make a major decision.
Right.
It's like having a conversation with myself on paper, which helps me gain clarity.
They also suggested talking things through with someone you trust.
Right.
A mentor, a friend, a therapist, anyone who can offer an objective perspective.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to see the forest for the trees
Totally.
when we're in the thick of things,
Right.
and another person can help us zoom out and see the bigger picture.
I think that's where the value of a diverse support system really comes in.
For sure.
Different people can offer different types of insights and perspectives,
Right.
which can be so valuable for personal growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about the importance of mindset and support,
Right.
but what about those times when we hit a wall?
Oh, yeah.
You know, those moments when procrastination sets in, motivation dwindles, or fear of failure takes hold?
We've all been there.
The English Globe podcast didn't shy away from addressing those challenges.
Good.
They acknowledged that setbacks are inevitable,
Right.
and they offered some practical strategies for navigating those rough patches.
Okay. I like it.
I loved their take on procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
They said that instead of beating ourselves up for putting things off,
Right.
we should try to understand the root cause of the procrastination.
That's so smart because often procrastination isn't just laziness.
Right.
It's a symptom of something deeper.
Exactly.
Maybe fear, overwhelm, or lack of clarity.
Right.
Once we identify the root cause, we can address it more effectively.
And they offered some great tips for overcoming those common roadblocks.
Like what?
Well, they talked about breaking down large tasks
Okay.
into smaller, more manageable steps,
Right.
which can make the whole process feel less daunting.
Yeah, for sure.
They also emphasized the importance of celebrating those small wins,
Yes.
which I think is crucial for staying motivated. It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back along the way,
For sure.
which can really boost your momentum.
Totally. They also had some great advice for dealing with the fear of failure,
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
which can be paralyzing for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
They encourage listeners to reframe failure
Okay.
as an opportunity for learning and growth.
It's about shifting our perspective from I messed up
Yeah,
to what can I learn from this experience?
I think that's such a powerful mindset shift.
Absolutely. They also talked about the importance of self-compassion,
Oh, yeah.
reminding us that everyone makes mistakes and that it's okay to not be perfect.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend.
It's also about recognizing that setbacks are a natural part of the learning process.
Right.
They're not a sign of failure.
For sure.
They're a sign that we're stretching ourselves and trying new things.
That's so true. And they really emphasize the importance of seeking support when we're struggling,
Yes.
whether it's talking to a friend, a mentor, or a therapist.
Right.
Sometimes just having someone to listen and offer encouragement can make all the difference.
I think it's important to remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It's a sign of strength.
Yeah.
It shows that we're committed to our growth and that we're willing to reach out for support when we need it.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the importance of building a strong support system,
Yeah,
embracing self-reflection, and developing a resilient mindset.
for sure.
Now, in the final part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring some specific tools and resources that can help you put all of this into practice.
I'm excited to share some of my favorite resources and discover some new ones along the way.
Okay, so let's get practical. The English Globe folks highlighted, some specific tools for language learning, but we're going to broaden that out.
Okay.
What are some resources across the board that have helped you in your own personal growth journey?
Well, I'm always a sucker for a good book. Atomic Habits by James Clear, like, completely changed how I approach goal setting and habit formation.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He breaks down the science behind it all in a really accessible way. Have you read it?
I have. It's one of those books I find myself recommending over and over
Oh,
again.
for sure.
Like his concept of habit stacking.
Yeah.
Attaching a new habit to an existing one is pure genius.
It takes the willpower out of the equation, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Speaking of brilliant, the English Globe podcast also recommended Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner,
Oh yeah, they mentioned that.
which is specifically about language learning,
Right.
but his techniques for memory and motivation are applicable to so much more.
Totally. Now, for those who are more tech inclined, there's a whole world of apps and online platforms out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The podcast hosts mentioned Duolingo and Babbel for language learning,
Right.
which are great starting points, but there are so many others out there, depending on your goals.
What I love about apps is how they like gamify the learning process.
Yeah,
They make it fun. It's like sneaking in personal growth while you're playing a game on your phone.
totally.
What are some of your favorite apps?
I've been using Headspace for meditation lately,
Okay.
and it's been a game changer for managing stress and improving my focus.
Yeah.
But, let's be honest, sometimes you just want to go old school
Right.
and curl up with a good book or magazine.
Yeah.
The podcast hosts recommended BBC Learning English as a website with tons of free resources.
Okay.
Definitely worth checking out.
They also gave a shout out to English with Lucy on YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
which is known for its clear explanations and engaging teaching style.
Hmm.
But honestly, YouTube is a treasure trove of information and inspiration on just about any topic you can imagine.
You can find anything on YouTube.
Seriously.
Expert lectures, documentaries, how-to videos, even book clubs. It's like having access to the world's largest library right in your pocket.
And don't forget about podcasts.
Oh, yeah. How could we...
The beauty of podcasts is that you can learn while you're doing other things.
Mhm.
Commuting, exercising, even washing the dishes.
Multitasking at its finest.
Exactly. They give a shout out to their own show, of course, the English Globe,
Right.
but they also mentioned The English We Speak from the BBC and Luke's English podcast.
Cool.
And there are countless others out there depending on your interests.
So many options.
I think what we're getting at here is that it's not about finding the one perfect resource.
Right.
It's about curating your own personal toolkit.
Yeah,
Try different things, experiment,
for sure.
see what resonates with you and your learning style.
Absolutely. And the English Globe host made this great point about how important it is to diversify our resources.
Yeah.
Don't just rely on one app or one book.
Right.
Mix it up. Keep things fresh and interesting.
And they emphasize that, like, the most valuable resource we have
Yeah.
is our own effort and dedication.
Right.
All the apps, books, and podcasts in the world won't do the work for us,
For sure.
but they can provide support and guidance along the way.
So true. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, which the English Globe hosts touched on throughout the episode. Community.
Yes.
The power of connecting with others who are on similar journeys, cannot be overstated.
They specifically mentioned the Ringlish Learning subreddit,
Right.
but there are countless online communities out there for any interest or goal you can imagine.
It's like having a virtual support group, a brainstorming session, and a cheering squad all rolled into one.
It's so inspiring to see people supporting each other,
Yeah.
sharing their struggles and triumphs, and celebrating each other's successes. And even if you're not actively participating, just reading through those threads can be incredibly motivating.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, sometimes just knowing that other people are going through similar challenges can make all the difference.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. Whether you're learning a new language, starting a business, or just trying to be a better version of yourself, remember that personal growth is a journey, not a destination.
And as we've learned from this deep dive into the English Globe podcast, it's a journey that's best traveled with a curious mind, a supportive community, and a toolkit filled with resources that inspire you to keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring and keep striving to be the best version of yourself.